Oh boy, happy Friday, guys. Good morning. Maryland basketball trying to put more gray hairs on me. They fall in overtime last night, 76-74. They lose at the buzzer, which there's not too many worse feelings in life, rooting for a team, betting on a team, and then losing at the buzzer. Uh, so that happened. Before that happened, it was a very competitive game, so I'll get through it in a second. But I have to start with I don't know if everybody else felt this way, but I'm like, am I supposed to download this Fox Sports app because this Iowa Nebraska women's basketball game that was on before the Maryland game is the longest college basketball game of my life? Like, what? I thought they reviewed too many things in the NBA. Holy God Almighty! Are they reviewing everything in the Iowa Nebraska game? We have a 10-second thing they got to rule, which I've never seen before. I'm like, I didn't think that was a 10-second violation as I'm watching. It's like, of course it's not. They just didn't run the clock the right way. They were doing everything they could to make me download the Fox Sports app last night. But anyway, by the time the Maryland Northwestern game came on, it was a 50-50 game all the way through. Some runs. Northwestern got all the way up by 10 in the second half, and Maryland came back. But it was a game of, I think there was 14 or 15 lead changes in the first half alone. It's a really competitive game, up and down. If you didn't watch it, you missed a good one. It was a lot of good basketball. The refs, look, refs are going to make mistakes. If you're rooting really hard, you're always going to find big time mistakes by the refs. But overall, the refs didn't decide it. It came down to overtime, and Martinelli, the lefty, who I really liked his game. Really good basketball player, probably an NBA player, like a second round pick, somebody that just smart role player. He hits the buzzer beater for Northwestern, and that's it. Maryland falls 76-74. Oh boy, how they got to overtime. I'll kind of go backwards; would be easier. Gillespie makes a layup, pretty much at the buzzer. Maybe not. I'm sorry. He makes the with about 6 or 7 seconds left in regulation, and then Barnheiser had a chance, but he. I'll tell you, the Barnheiser kid on Northwestern, really easy to root for. Played out of control the last couple minutes of the game. He's not an NBA player. Yeah, he's just not. He's like bulldozing his way through. Traveled on the one play, trying to draw fouls. Took a corner three that was like an atrocious shot in overtime, right in front of his own bench. Basically, tried to win the game himself, and it almost cost him. But he was a dog though. He wanted that game, I think, more than anybody on Maryland did. Like Barnheiser played really, really hard, and then Martinelli hits the game winner. And I swear, if you watch inbounds plays at the college or the NBA level, it's always the last option. That's who they run the play for. Like in the high school, middle school, elementary school level, you're trying to get like that first option. Run a stack, boom, one guy slips in there for a layup. But at the highest levels of basketball, if you watch, it's like the first one guy's taking it out, right? And then there's four other guys, and it's usually that third or fourth option that gets free, and that's who they design it for because there's all this different movement. You cut off this guy, and your instincts are to stop the first guy. And it was a great play call. Martinelli comes around. There's zero point 0.7 on the clock, but he got such a clean look that he gets it up and it goes in, and Northwestern beats us. So overtime was full of opportunities, as you can imagine. The whole game was full of opportunities. Why did Northwestern beat us? I'll focus more on Northwestern, then I'll circle back to Maryland. So, mentioned Martinelli and Barnheiser. They're the two lead dogs for Northwestern. They played almost the entire game, if not the whole game. I think Martinelli played the whole game. Barnheiser was out there pretty much the whole game. But Northwestern had a couple other guys. They're slipping my name right this second, but a couple other. I think it's Leach and what's it? Make sure I get his name right. Leach and Barry hit several threes, and I felt like their threes were a product of Maryland. Just a bad scouting report and bad coaching there by Willard. I love Willard. I think he does a great job, but it wasn't the move to press these guys. In the first half, Northwestern got way too many easy shots off of Maryland's press. The press didn't frustrate them. If anything, it made everything easier for Northwestern because they're not dynamic on offense. They're not super athletic, and they don't really get great shots. But what happens is they were getting some good looks in transition and off the press, and they made them. And they're at home. And I just thought Willard, he went away from the press in the second half, but shouldn't have been in it really in the first half. They Northwestern played complementary basketball. The big guy Nicholson, he banged with Queen and Reese. He's not very good. He's a typical college center, but what he is he's stronger than Derek Queen. And I thought that made a difference in a lot of 50-50 plays, some of the rebounding, some of the little things that might not show up in the stat sheet when you're just looking at positioning and boxing out, getting your hand on the ball. Derek Queen is an NBA player, but he's got to get stronger, especially in the lower body. He just has to get stronger. The bench guy, what's it, Fitzmaurice, I think was his name, number 5, yeah, on Northwestern. He had so much energy. Like Northwestern wanted this game more than Maryland. I mean, you couldn't watch that game and not feel that just from the energy. And Northwestern was desperate. They've been in the tournament back-to-back years. They've lost 3 straight. They felt like they had to win that game. If you saw the standings and throughout the broadcast, it's like, man, Northwestern is way at the bottom. I don't know how they're going to get themselves back into this thing. It starts with they have to win tonight. And Maryland's a better basketball team, but they didn't win it as much. So that's why they lost. When I flip it onto Maryland's side, besides the press that I thought was ill-advised in the first half, the positive, Julian Reese's free throws is a difference maker. I think he only missed one. He was great from the free throw line, making almost every single free throw, dominant in the first half. For the life of me, I don't know why these amazing basketball players get to this age and then can't use their offhand. But he can't go right at all. So I don't know how he expects to get paid at the next level unless he's going to turn into a 3-point shooter, because you got to be able to go right. You got to be able to handle the ball. There's a few things he doesn't do great. He doesn't pass out of the double team extremely well. But for this particular Maryland team, being your third best player, which I feel like he should be with Gillespie and Queen, he's a good enough third best player to win the national championship. But your best player, Derek Queen, not there yesterday. Not there. Similar all season how he's been. He's not prioritizing defense. He's not playing like a dog. He's a great ball player. He seems like a great kid, but he's got to protect the rim because Julian Reese isn't really a rim protector. Julian Reese is a high-flying, block your shot, but he's not the strongest guy in the room. We're lacking strength on the inside. There's too many rebounds Northwestern was able to get. Meanwhile, our smaller guys like Rice and Miguel and Gillespie and Deshaun Harris-Smith, they're physical. Jay Young is physical. The smaller guys are super physical, but the big guys, we really only have 2, and Queen's got to be stronger. I thought, he got the second foul was a cheap foul earlier in the game, and then the third foul in the second half was not a smart foul, but he's got to get in better shape. So I was a little disappointed watching him because I'm like, he's an NBA player. You see some of the passes he makes out of the double team, the way he can handle the ball. Yeah, sure. But can you just catch the ball 4 feet from the basket and get a layup here? Because that's what we needed as an offense. And too many times he catches the ball in the Jokic range. Like if you ever watch Joker or, pick a wing player, Paul George, Kevin Durant, Edwards, some of these elite guys, they catch the ball 20 feet away from the basket. And we're not going to spend all day talking about NBA basketball, but when you're catching the ball that far away from the basket, you have to have an enormous amount of skill and like top-notch footwork to create separation. It's really hard. They make it look easy, but it's super difficult, and that's why, just simplify things, and you just can't. I'm laughing because I feel like I've been saying this now for 12 years to every big guy I have on the team, which is get your layups. Like Kobe Bryant played center in high school. Like, yes, you can play guard when you get to the next level. Someone else can coach you and you can turn into a guard. That's fine when you're 6'4", 6'5", and you're going to end up being a guard. But at this level, please, can we get some layups inside? That's what we need. And I watched Derek Queen. I'm like, that's the same thing I'm telling to the high school team. Like, dude, just get closer to the basket. I know you can do all these different things, but Maryland, we need a basket inside. Like, we need to force pressure on their big guys, get them into foul trouble. We put no pressure on Northwestern, no stress on Northwestern. They just didn't feel us all game. We're lucky, frankly, we were able to make a run because we were down by 10 in the second half, and it felt like might just lose by 10, 15 points. But we made a run. We're so much more athletic than Northwestern on the perimeter. Maybe we need some more high ball screens and let these guys get into the paint. Because throwing the ball to Queen and run the offense through him 20 feet away from the basket, it's just, I don't know. I feel like everything's got to be going in the right direction for that to be the offense. That's not the closing offense in the last 5 minutes. Gillespie was great. He's clutch. He's smart. He's physical. Makes a great layup to get us to overtime. But it's just not enough. It was not enough. Came away from the game thinking Barnheiser won the game more for Northwestern, and Martinelli was the best player. The lefty on Northwestern hits the buzzer beater. And man, every time you see those stack plays, it's always the last option on those inbound plays. So, oh boy, Martinelli comes off seemed like we're at the 4 Mississippi 5, and then they get the ball in, and he makes the shot. So in Maryland, that was not a good loss. You lose to Purdue on the road, and you lose to Oregon on the road, and you're like, man, they're tough places to play. They were in those games. It's a long season. Blah blah blah. Then they come home and they win those 2 games against UCLA and Minnesota, and you're starting to feel good. Like, all right, let's just get this win on Northwestern, and we're pretty much in the tournament at that point. Like, now we're rolling. Now we're one of these top echelon teams. We're feeling good. We're probably on the verge of being ranked. Now instead, it's like, are you guys gonna stress me out here the first or second week of March as I try to figure out if you're gonna make the tournament? Because they got to win a few more games. Like, they still got to win a handful of games, and it's not going to get much easier. They get Nebraska at home on Saturday at noon, and then they're on the road for Illinois and Indiana next week. 2 tough games, and they get home against Wisconsin. So this Nebraska game, and not a must-win, but it feels like we got to get this one. Let's get back on track. So yeah. Anyway, there's 2.5 hours of my night yesterday. First, I got to watch the Iowa-Nebraska overtime women's college basketball. So it took 10 minutes to get the Maryland game on. And we got to do something. This is an entertainment product. It's bad in the NBA when they review every single play. But the women's college basketball, they're reviewing every single play. And I'm just like, I think I'd be more satisfied. I don't know if everybody else feels this way, where can we just get the game over with? Like, if you guys miss a couple calls, I don't know. Like, does anybody really, really, really care that much? Can't we just go back to it'll all even itself out? That's what I always would say as a coach and as a fan watching. I'm like, unless you can prove to me that the referee is specifically rooting for one of these teams, which, scandal will come out here or there, can't we just assume that, karma will just even itself out? Like, one call here, one call there, whatever. It'll all even itself out. I know that sounds ridiculous because it's like we have the technology to figure out what's right and what's wrong. But it's one thing in tennis where I know there's a little bit of a lapse in between each serve, and I got a minute here and they want to review it, and then they do a little screen, and then does the ball hit the line? It's like, all right, that's good, great. But the basketball, I'm like, oh my God, it's like taking forever. It kills the momentum, and then it just feels like a different sport. And it's all about the coaches drawing up plays. There's way too many timeouts. International basketball was great. They don't review anything. They just play. And so that was the takeaway as I was watching the Iowa-Nebraska women's basketball. But, all right. I hope everybody has a good Friday. These college basketball games this week have drained me. Oh, boy. It is what it is. I hate that saying, but if I don't know what else to say, it's just what comes out of my mouth. Tomorrow, I'm gonna do a pod this afternoon with J. Martin Clayton. Just not exactly sure when, but I'll put that out in the morning. We're gonna do the Notre Dame Ohio State game, break down all the props, and they were really good about the props for the semifinals game. So hopefully they're on point here. We'll do that. Put that out tomorrow. The game's on Monday, which I think I mentioned it yesterday. I don't know how to spend any time on Monday thinking about Notre Dame, Ohio State until like right before the game, because it'll all be about the AFC and NFC championships. So yeah, but anyway, we'll do the pod this afternoon on Notre Dame, Ohio State, put that out tomorrow morning. And yeah, I think that's about it for me today. I I hate apologizing if I get games wrong because no one wants to hear that. Saying you're sorry without a solution is stupid, but I feel terrible. I don't know. Yeah, it's like one thing when I lose my own money on these games, but the whole point is to steer people in the right direction. And I certainly have not been doing that the past week with these college basketball games. Just not ball is not bouncing my way. So I really feel bad about that. It reinforces my message of, you know, always do your own research. And if you feel good about a game that I also feel good about, then great. But you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're just trusting somebody else or thinking that somebody knows who's going to win these games. So um, I see you guys tomorrow. But yeah, this was not a fun one last night at all. I felt really good that Maryland was going to beat the brakes off of them, and Northwestern was just they wanted that game more. So gut check for Maryland coming up this weekend. Hope you guys have a great day and stay safe. Enjoy yourselves. I'll see you guys tomorrow.